Okay. Well, our uh, PowerPoint presentation tonight is calling all new authors and 7 book writing for
Tricks for
newbies.
newbies.
So we all have to start somewhere. And I have found that I benefit very much by going to websites and finding out more about what people are learning and finding out new tricks of the trade. And so, even if you're an experienced author, I would pray that you would get something out of this tonight that would benefit you very much and very highly in that regard. So, you are at the right place. This is the webinar for 7 book writing tricks for newbies. It might be a trip too. And we tried to start right at 7 here, and uh, this wonderful world of technology once again has showed itself to be very formidable. But we're off to a good start, and let's see what happens. All right, 7 tricks for you to get your book done, even in 28 days or less. And you can do this without stressing yourself to death. Now, it may be that you have experienced a failure in the past. Well, don't let that get you down. Don't worry about past failures. Uh, Past failures are not your fault. You see, it is quite overwhelming to think about all the things that are involved in writing a book. And then there is also the fear of failure. Well, put your fears to rest because tonight we're going to find out that it indeed is possibly easier to write than we ever thought it would be. And then, if you have dreamed about writing a book, I would just encourage you to go ahead and go for it and go with your dreams. So, go for your dreams. Now, there are 3 different types of people that this will help, and these 3 types of people, and others also, but the first type that I'm looking at are business owners, and they are sitting down and trying to figure out how to do this. And the second type, and there's a picture of the second type here, is a brand new author, someone who has never written a book before or has never had a book published before. And as I mentioned, business owners would benefit from what we're going to be talking about tonight. And professional speakers, or maybe new speakers. If anybody's been in the speaking business for any length of time, they more than likely will go to people who have been in it longer. And the people that have been in the business for a longer amount of time uh, pretty well say to us younger folks that we need to have a book. Now, I kind of laughed whenever I said us younger folks, whenever I said that, but they have advised people over and over again that you need to have a book. Having a book is something that you can present to a meeting planner and it can set you apart. If you are applying for a paid speaking engagement and it is a sizable one, then you could take some of what you would get for that speaking engagement and use that to purchase a certain number of your books. Say, maybe you would be willing to give 100 copies of your book to that event, and that would make a difference. Webinar is for you to see that the only way for you to exponentially stand out above those who just hand out business cards is to present your prospective clients or customers with your book. And the only way to get your book done quickly and easily is through Collegiate Consulting Services Write a Book in 28 Days or Less book creation program. The only way to get it done quickly and easily using our techniques, that is. Well, who am I and why should you listen to me? There is a picture of me and my lovely wife, Rhonda, We have been married for over 45 years, and I have been encouraged by her several years ago that she said, I think you should teach a class and you should gather men together and teach them how they should treat their wives. And so I thought, well, okay, I'll write a book. And actually, on the screen here, on the bottom section of these three books, is the first book I wrote. It's called The Loving Way to a Successful Marriage, 6 Keys to Marital Bliss. Well, that book is no longer in print, but I'm taking each one of those 6 keys and I'm writing a series of books. So the second book that you see here is the first in that series, and it is called 21 Ways the Principle of Leaving Will Benefit Your Marriage. Now you say, well, I thought this was a book about marriage, not divorce, and indeed it is. Of course, that's a play on words, and only as a last resort should you have to implement the principle of leaving in perhaps a more literal way. But then the next book is called From Mountains to Molehills, and it is overcoming and celebrating your differences in marriage. Now, both of these books, whenever I started writing the new series, hit the Amazon bestseller list in various categories in marriage. So that's part of the reason why you might want to listen to me. Now, I want to tell you about something that happened years ago. I got involved in a doctoral program. And as part of this program, we had to write what's commonly called a dissertation. A dissertation is just a major writing project. And this particular organization was encouraging us that we should write our major writing project in a popular way and perhaps in a way that could get published. So I sort of wrote mine in that fashion. But this doctoral program was very, very difficult for many of us. You see, this was back in the days before computers and before the word processing programs, and where you could just cut and paste using your computer. And one of the things that they had asked us to do in this program was to submit all of these writing projects that we had. Much of the assignments were writing based, of course, and there were occasions where we would go, when the higher you get in education, the more you do individually, the more you do on a research basis, and the more you have to become a self-starter. Well, they wanted us to submit 1/6 of our assignments at one time, and so there was a date for that. Well, I had done okay in grade school and high school in writing, and whenever I got in college, I was very grateful for an instructor who said that we're going to pretend like that you don't know anything about writing, and we're just going to start from the beginning. And so that was very, very helpful. And then I was in another graduate school getting a master's degree, and I took a course called Research and Writing, and I happened to make an A in that course. But I hit a snag here when I was working on my doctoral program, because you see, I would write it and then I would say, oh, that's not good enough. Then I would crumple up the paper and throw it in the wastebasket. Well, then after failing to get the first assignment done several times, I set it aside and I tried to do some more. And my wastebasket was full of paper. And the date for that first submission came, and went. It was gone. Now, I expected to hear from the graduate school, and I did hear from them, but instead of them getting on to me for not having met that first deadline, they were inviting us students to come to a special week-long seminar on campus. And the enticement for doing that, at least for me, was that that would replace several of those writing projects. We would write when we were there, we would get things done. And anyway, I jumped on that and I went to that week-long seminar. Somewhere in the middle of the week, the vice president came and addressed us. Now, his eyes could have fallen on anyone, but instead they fell on me. And then he said something that changed my life and helped me to get done. Obviously, I did get through, or I would not be able to have a website that is now drrandycarney.com. This randycarneyspeaker.com that you see at the bottom of the screen will take you to the same place. But anyway, I was able to get through with that, and I will share with you what that secret was here in a few minutes. Well, now you may think that you have to be some kind of Superman to write a book. Well, I assure you that I am no Superman. There's a small town not far from where I live, and it is called Metropolis, but it is Metropolis, Illinois. And every year they have a Superman celebration. Well, I'm just a small kid from a small town in southern Illinois. In fact, where I live now is on the back side of the farm upon which I grew up. Just like you are, I know what it's like to have the feeling of failure, and I know what it's like to experience that feeling of fear. And I also have learned, like many of you, that staying at something long enough helps you increase your skills. Well, I just stuck with it, reading and learning until I found techniques that make writing quick, fun, and easy. And I want to share that with you. Well, I have here the 3 secrets of quick and easy writing. And actually, we're going to be talking about 12 tricks, or you might call them secret tricks. But trick number 1 is to understand that your book will open all kinds of new opportunities. How to use your book to expand your marketing and highlight your expertise. Trick number 2, your book will be easy to write. How to plan your book to make your writing fun and easy. And then secret number 3, your book will be in your hands in 3 to 6 months. How to get your dream book finished and published. There will be 4 more tricks interspersed among these as we go through this presentation. So trick number 1, you need to realize that your book will open all kinds of new opportunities. We're talking about how to use your book to expand your marketing and highlight your expertise. See if you understand the why you want to write a book. Why do you want to write a book? Do you have a message that you want to share with the world? Do you want to have that to develop your platform and enhance your ability to be able to get speaking engagements? Do you want to have a book to promote your business? Why do you want to have a book? Well, What happens whenever you give someone your business card? Well, its journey is probably like the business cards that you receive. You take it home and you look at it, and more than likely, then you will put it in a little business card holder, or maybe you will take the information and put it in a database of some kind. You may even put the information in your phone contacts, but then it is out of sight and out of mind until something comes along and jars the memory of that person to whom you gave your business card. And then they are reminded that they might go look up your business card. But what happens when you give someone a book? When you give someone a book, they take it home with them or to their office, and they might even read it. But at any rate, they more than likely will not throw a book in a waste can as easily as they would throw a little business card. The value is indeed much greater than a business card. And your name will be on the spine of that book. And either at home or in your office, or maybe you have a home office, when you place that on your bookshelf, your name there will be ever in front of the person to whom you gave the book. And so it will not be out of sight and out of mind. And in fact, that person may be reminded of you just by looking around in the office, be reminded of you a week from now, 2 weeks from now, a month from now, and it will stand out much more than a business card that's buried in a business card holder somewhere. Yeah. I recently bought a book about small business principles, and I thought it was very good. And I was getting ready to place it on my bookshelf. And at the end of the book, it talked about 2 more books that this author had. And I thought to myself, I might like to buy those books at some point in the future. Well, I did go ahead and place that book on my bookshelf. And the very next day, I went to the mailbox, and there was a package in the mailbox that I was not expecting. And I took it in my house and I opened it up, and it was one of those other books from this author. He had sent me a note and an autographed copy. Now, I can tell you that anytime I hear that he is going to be presenting a webinar somewhere, or he's going to be doing a video, or he's going to send me an email, I am going to be interested in what he has to say, because I'm so grateful for the book that he gave me. When you give a book to someone, it makes an impression. Now, for many years now, over 40 years, I have been involved as a dual profession. I've been involved in bivocational ministry. One of the areas was in the area of Christian education, and I was involved in one way or another with that aspect of ministry for over 25 years. But I also spent much time pastoring churches, and I went on a mission trip to Mexico a few years ago. Now, we were not very brave missionaries. We had someone who had a home that they provided for those who would go on mission trips. And our host went to church. So we would go to Mexico during the day, and we would cross the border back into Texas every night and spend the night in Texas. So we decided to visit our hostess's church. And on that particular Wednesday night, they also had a meal at her church. And she introduced me to her pastor. And she did tell him that I was there on a mission trip. But she also introduced me as the author of The Loving Way to a Successful Marriage, 6 Keys to Marital Bliss. And I don't think we talked longer than 3 minutes after she introduced me as an author. And before our conversation was over with, less than 5 minutes, he had booked me to come back to his church and present a marriage seminar. You see, the book made the difference. Well, you can do a lot of study, and as you do more and more study, you will find out how that a book will benefit you. There was one study that was done by a group of small business owners, and I believe there were 200 people that responded to this study. And the report was that every one of them said that getting a book done to represent their business was beneficial. So I want to encourage you about writing a book. And I just told you about my personal benefit as being a speaker and an author. And so I want to encourage you that you can write a book. Now, you may think getting to be known as an expert is hard. Well, actually, being an author is one of the quickest ways to be established as an authority in any field. You may think, well, it's too expensive to give books away to all my prospective meeting planners or my prospective clients or my prospective customers. Well, you will want to focus on your ideal customers or clients with your books because they are more expensive than the little business cards. But they are many, many times more effective than a little card. The benefits will far outweigh the cost. You may think, I could never get on radio or TV. Well, radio and TV shows often look for interesting content. Authors are some of their favorite people to interview, and this provides free advertising for you. Well, let's look at some of the steps to getting your book written. Your book will open all kinds of opportunities for you and your business. Trick number 2, your book will be easy to write. We're going to talk about how to plan your book to make your writing fun and easy. And this will include some of the other tricks. Well, writing a book is basically where you have ideas. These ideas have to be expressed in words, and then the words make up sentences and paragraphs and turn into pages. So here's trick number 3. Do a brain dump of all your ideas. Now, there are 2 ways to do this. You can use either a mind map or a brainstorming list. A mind map, you may know what that is, but in the middle of the page, you write your topic and draw a circle around it. And then you branch out from that using 2 or 3 word summaries of ideas that relate to that. And so, and you'll have a certain train of thought, and all in that train of thought, you just keep connecting together with little lines coming out from the center. And then you'll start a new train of thought, start in the center again. and start radiating out from that. And it's best to do this by hand. There are computer programs that will allow you to do it, and that's okay to use that. But if you do it by hand, you can go back in, you can draw squiggly lines around, and you can squeeze in between the first idea and the second idea presented, and something else looks like, well, it'd be good to be in between those. You can do that. Uh, so do a brain dump of all of your ideas using either a mind map or a brainstorming list. Now, brainstorming list would be where you just take a sheet of paper and you start writing down ideas, and you just do them in order as you go down the page. And you should come up with uh, a couple of pages, or you'd come up with a large sheet full of ideas for this mind map. So do a brain dump of all of your ideas using either a mind map or a brainstorming list. Now, once you have that brainstorming list done, then you go through and you put little symbols by ideas that are similar. Like you might use a star as one symbol. And so you may have several ideas that are similar, and they will all be designated by a star. Well, then you come to another idea, and you could designate it by any symbol you want, but let's just say a square. And then you go down through your list, and you get other related ideas, and these all have squares beside them. And this helps you to categorize your list. Once you've done that, you will have these groups of ideas that will help you to form the chapters of your book. Now, I want to tell you that I worked at a major Christian publishing company years ago. And when I got there, I worked in the training department during the summer, and we knew that that was going to be seasonal, because this training department trained people how to use a very innovative, individualized curriculum. They were way ahead of their time back then. Now, with so many online programs, much of the educational material is individualized nowadays. But anyway, we're in the training department, and we taught people how to use that curriculum. Well, the president and vice president of that organization met with me, and they said, "What are you good at?" And I said, "Writing." You see, because I had wanted to be there to work with their college students, and I had previously talked to their vice president about helping them develop a writing program for those students. And, well, he had asked me to bring my major writing project from my doctoral work, which I did. I brought it to him. And anyway, I said writing, and in my mind, I said it very hesitantly with a question mark at the end. That it must have come across as writing. And within 5 minutes, that meeting was over with. That was on Friday afternoon. And the next Monday morning, I found myself in a room with 7 other writers. Now, we were all these writers were men, and so they, of course, affectionately called our room the men's room. Well, anyway, it served as a think tank too. Well, my manager came in and said, here is a notepad, and you need to fill out a report every day. And I thought, well, that's fine. I'll be glad to do that. And then he turned and he walked out of the room, and he kind of looked over his shoulder and he said, You have to write 700 words every day. Wow, that floored me. I was thinking, how was I going to write 700 words every day? And so I fell into a little bit of the same trap that I fell in doing my doctoral work for a little while. And as I was doing this, I came through there and I talked to the other writers, and they said, "Oh, no, no, you don't have to write 700 words every day, but you will have to write an average of 700 words to meet your deadlines." So I wrote 200 or 300 words a day for the next 2 or 3 days, and the manager was not upset that I wasn't reporting 700 words. But the next week I decided, okay, I am going to do it. Now, let me just stop for a minute and tell you what the vice president of the graduate school told us. You see, I hadn't turned anything in. And he looked across the room and his eyes fell on me. And he said, "Some of you are not doing anything." And here's what changed my life. He almost pled with us, with his eyes still on me, although I was representing the whole group. And he said, "Just give me something." Well, I went back home and I started that first assignment, and I started to crumple up that paper, and then I said, "No, he told me just give him something, so this is what he's going to get." And I put it in an outbox tray. And then I started on the next assignment, and I did the same thing. And 2 weeks later, I went back and looked at what I had written, and I said, well, it's not half bad. And so I submitted it. And to my recollection, on that first submission, I received A's on all of those assignments. You see, we have to get over the perfection monster. And so I was here trying to write these 700 words a day. Now here's the trick that was very, very helpful to me. It became hard whenever I decided to write those 700 words, and I was trying to make them the perfect words. But then I realized we had a whole team of editors and proofreaders, and it went through a process, and we had experts in the field that would read it and give feedback to us. So what I was writing these days was not the final product. Once I realized that, I went in the next day and I just sat down there and I just started typing. And sometimes I would think, oh, this is just fluff. But after an hour, hour and a half, I had my 700 words done. And I knew that they might be changed later. But you see, then I had 6.5 hours left to do whatever I wanted to. And I was going to meet my word deadlines. I knew I was going to because of what I was turning in. But I had the rest of the day. I could research ahead. I could plan ahead. The rest of the day, I could go back to those things that I'd written in the last few days and go in and change those. Get rid of what indeed was fluff and make it better. Go back and do more research on certain other things. The secret was to just sit down and just write the 700 words. Some people call that free flow writing. Well, trick number 4, figure out how many pages your book should have and how many chapters it should have. Now, there is a very prolific business writer. His name is Brian Tracy. And he says that whenever he gets ready to write a new book, he knows it's either going to be 5 chapters, 7 chapters, 12 chapters, or 21 chapters.
So you need to figure out how many pages your book should have. One of the
One of
ways
the
that you
ways you
can
can
do
do
that
that
is
is
by
by
adding
going
in
to
uh,
Amazon.com and
a
doing some
research that you
research.
would do
So
by going
you
to
could look
Amazon
for
and checking on
the
the
top 10 books in
things that
your
were
field
happening there.
or that are related to your topic. Find out how long those books are, add all those pages together, and divide that by 10. And then I would round it off either to the nearest 5, 10, 15, 20, or 25 pages, and that would give me a book goal. In the past, good news and bad news. In the past, the idea was that many nonfiction books should probably be about 200 pages long. The good news today is that if you're quickly wanting to write a book, that shorter is a little bit better. Now, I would recommend that you would have your book to be at least 125 pages long. And you may ask why I recommend that. Well, the answer is simple. If you want to have your name and title displayed on the spine, it needs to be at least 120 pages long. So I'd recommend about 125 pages as a minimum for a paperback book as you're trying to go this route. Now, if you're doing only a digital book, then of course it would not have to be that long at all. But anyway, you would add all those pages up, divide it by 10, and that would give you an idea of how long you want your book to be. Then you would take that total number of pages and you want to find out how many chapters your book would have. So again, look at the top 10 books in your chosen topic, chosen field, and find out how many chapters those books have in them. And that'll give you a rough idea of how many chapters your book should have. Also, as you're doing this research, you will notice that there will be chapters that repeat topics over and over. And you certainly should have chapters dealing with those topics in your book also. So anyway, trick number 4 is to find out how many pages your book should have and how many chapters it should have. So follow this research trick, and that will help you very much in giving you a word goal. And as you find out how many pages your book needs to have, and then you need to find out how many chapters that your book needs to have, you divide the total number of pages by the chapters, and that will give you a page count for each chapter. Now, if your division comes up somewhere between 7 and 10 pages, then what I'm going to talk to you about in the rest of this webinar will be ideal toward getting your book done that way. Well, do you have trouble with writer's block? Here's something that will help you to get your book rolling. Your trigger words or phrases. Now, this would simply be having a chapter title and having a bunch of starter phrases that you would start with those phrases, and then you would type for a certain length of time, and then you would start with the next phrase. Would recommend that you have between 12 and 15 of these starter phrases. So it would just be the starting of a sentence, a few words, followed by an ellipses. And then you would have 12 to 15 of those listed under your chapter heading. Now this is where the magic of free flow writing will come in. This will be one of the best tips that you can get from this webinar. Now I urge you not to overlook the importance of this.
At first, it may sound almost a little bit preposterous, but I assure you that there have been many people that have used these techniques and found them to be great. So here's how it works. You start with that first trigger word or phrase, and you take a kitchen timer, a good investment, set it for 5 minutes, and click Start. Start with your trigger word or phrase and just start typing. And just keep typing for 5 minutes. If you think you've run out of things to say before the 5 minutes are up, just keep typing. Just like the Vice President told us earlier, just give me something. Just give yourself something in this rough draft phase of what you're doing. Sometimes it will be repetitive. Sometimes it will be fluff. Sometimes you'll be putting in things that you will take out later. But sometimes you will have new insights, and some of your best writing may be done following this little exercise. Suppose you do not finish in the 5 minutes time. Well, you could keep going till you finish, but in the rough draft phase, I would recommend, and I found this to be helpful, to just finish that particular sentence and then put an ellipses in there to remind you that you really didn't get finished on that little section, so that whenever you do the second draft, you will come in and finish it up then. So your trigger words and phrases will get you rolling. It is very important that you separate the editing process from the creating process. And that is what using this little timer will do for you. So use your trigger words, get them put down on the page, use the timer, and that will definitely get you rolling. Okay, so trick number 5, I had just mentioned it. Come up with 12 to 15 trigger words or phrases per chapter. Now let's say you only had 8 or 10 ideas. How would you expand that? Just start asking yourself questions, and that will give you more trigger words. Now there are 3 prolific authors who have used these techniques, or techniques similar to these. These are my take on techniques that I've developed through the years, and they have used similar techniques. Steve Manning writes under a lot of pen names. So the only book that I found from him was something about the Jacksons and another book about how to write a book. Now Nick Dawes, a British author, writes under his own name quite a bit. And you can find many, many books that he has written, and he uses this trigger phrase technique quite a bit. And then Rob Parnell is a master at free flow writing. And so you will find that he has a lot of books to his credit. All right. We talk here about talk your book into existence. Talk your book into existence. Now, I just want to let you know that as I'm going back and forth here, trying to get back to the slide that I want to be on, talk your book into existence. There is a software that is called Dragon Naturally Speaking. I'm not a spokesman for them. I don't own any stock in the company, and right now I'm not an affiliate for them. But I have used that to some good success. And I will tell you this, that the more you use it, the more it recognizes your voice. So in the first part of your book, you will be having to go in and correct a lot of things that it did not recognize. Now, there's another, if you have a Mac and you have Word for Mac, and maybe Word for Windows, you would have to check it out. But there is an option where you can go in and you can dictate, and it is very similar to Dragon Naturally Speaking. That's one way of talking your book into existence. Here's another one, and this would involve you taking your trigger words that you have for each chapter and turn each of those into a question and have someone interview you, record the interview, and then have it transcribed. Well, where can you get transcription work done? Well, again, here's another place that I can recommend that you can go look, and it is called Fiverr, Fiverr. That has many projects where people will write, do a lot of projects for $5, or they will do projects for uh, more than $5 depending on the length of them. I've found many people would do transcription work for audio files for $15 for a 30-minute file. So you can talk your book into existence. Now, here's some myths about writing. You may have thought I could not write a book. Well, with the proper help, you could. You may have thought, I don't have any writing talent or skill. If you can talk, you can get a book written. Even if you get someone to do part of the writing for you, you can still have a book in your voice, especially since they will be listening to your recordings. Now, you may have thought, I don't have the time to write a book. Well, when you can set aside 8 hours a week, in other words, that would just be doing maybe 75 minutes a day, which would just be 7.5 hours a week, you can have your book done in less than a month. You see, because you have 15 trigger words, and you write for 5 minutes on each one of those 15 words, that's 75 minutes of writing, and you will write a chapter in 75 minutes. So if you set aside 8 hours a week, you can have your book done in less than a month. If you do just 2 hours a week, you can be done in about 3 months. Surely you can find that amount of time. You do have time to write your book. So I hope these things have been helpful to you. Again, the timer is key, and the trigger words causes you to have your book pre-written in a sense. You've written an outline of it very quickly. It is an outline, but it is more than an outline. It is writing block goals. In fact, I sometimes refer to that as having block parties. After all, we're discussing 7 tricks for newbies to write your dream book in 28 days or less without stressing yourself to death. You can do it. How do you do it without stress? The secret is using the timer and just have fun while you're writing. Just write, just write, and just write. Now, in the final analysis, you will edit whenever you do your final book. Well, here's secret number 7. Your book will be in your hands in 3 to 6 months. How to get your dream book published and finished. The first 3 that is represented there are the 3 textbooks that I wrote for that major publishing company. The one following that is where I took my major writing project from my doctoral work and I repackaged it into a course, and it was an online course. Uh, the one following that is where I got a job as a freelance writer and wrote a chemistry textbook. And incidentally, I used this trigger word and 5-minute technique to write that chemistry textbook. So I know this can be done. And then the other 3 books are the 3 books on marriage that we have already mentioned. And I use the timer technique to write those books also. So I just want to encourage you that you can write a book, and that I know that this can be done because I've done it. Now, there are 3 types of publishing, and so we look at these 3 different individuals on the screen. Now, the first one on the left is one who has a smile on his face. That represents you and me, and we are happy because we got our book rough drafted out, and then we edited it, and we got help in editing, and we're happy with it. In the middle, this one is a little bit more perplexed because he or she is a middleman or a middle person, and he or she is between the author on the left and the publisher on the right. This is the route you would go for traditional publishing. You would first get an agent, and then an agent would pitch your book to the publisher. The agent is vested in that because the agent receives a percentage of what you're going to get for your book. That is traditional publishing route. Okay, now we can work with just the first 2, you and an agent, because the publisher is grayed out because your agent is going to do the work for you with traditional publishing. So that is the first route. Now, there are a lot of variables there. You don't know when you will get an agent. You don't know how quickly the publisher will accept your project, but that is traditional publishing. And now here's another one, just involves you. In this internet age, there are many options where you can do self-publishing. Many business owners and speakers prefer self-publishing to traditional publishing. The reason for that is because you get to keep so much more of the sale price of the book as a self-publisher. Uh, but you can also have an option today that is called hybrid publishing. A hybrid publisher does not have an agent between you and them, and it has some of the best of both worlds. You're in complete control of how you want your book to end up, but the hybrid publisher will give you extra items for extra cost, which is reasonable. They may provide editing services for you, and they may provide marketing services for you. A lady named Shelley, who attended one of my first classes, self-published. And then I told you about one of the other ladies in the class, did not publish her own book, but she went home and talked to her daughter-in-law, and her daughter-in-law used a hybrid publisher, and she was happy with that. Well, then there is a market for hybrid publishing. Otherwise, they would not be in business. Many speakers and business owners prefer self-publishing because of higher royalties. Let's say you had a speaking engagement and you sold 10 books at the back of the room, and you got to keep $7 for each book that you sold. That would be $70. Your traditionally published book in the bookstore may have 10 people come and buy it, and you would get $5 in royalties for that. Now, it depends on what your overall goal is. If you think that you can reach the world and sell millions of books, then traditional publishing may be the way to go. Now, here, if you want to go traditional publishing, I would recommend doing this. Start sending out query letters to find agents, and in the process, set up a self-published version of your book too. Many self-published books have been approached by traditional publishers and have been picked up by those traditional publishers too. So here's the options: self-publishing, traditional publishing, hybrid publishing. With self-publishing and hybrid publishing, you can be published very, very quickly. And so 3 to 6 months from now, you could have your book in hand. So here is the option. Will you be published? Will you get your book finished? I hope that you will, and I hope that you are able to find the publishing option that will work the best for you. So we've talked about these 7 tricks for newbies to get their books written and published. Again, I want to highlight the idea of having trigger words or phrases for each chapter. Now you may be wondering, I think I could write a book, but I don't know how to get it published. We can help you choose your options and get you in touch with a publisher. You may be wondering, I don't know what to write about. If you have a business, you have something to write about, and we can help you figure that out too. That's one of the things that I do, is to help people to be able to write books. And I do that through courses and coaching. Well, I could help people in your company figure this out. Your published book will be in your hands in 3 to 6 months. Now, isn't that exciting? I mean, that is the big promise. Doesn't that make you happy? Does that give you a thumbs up to think about that? You may be asking yourself, could I really do this? Well, let me just tell you to do a little 5-minute writing project and see. Do some trigger words. See how you do just writing free flow for 5 minutes. All right, do you feel like you've been hit by water from a fire hose? We've covered a whole bunch of stuff. Now, I mentioned the coaching option. And a coaching option is certainly something that I would be happy to help you with. That's not going to be the main thing that I'm going to talk to you about in my offer to you today, but I do want you to be aware of it, and I want you to be aware of the value of coaching. Yes, maybe you could go through and do this on your own. I've given you enough information where you could get a start at doing this. But if you would like someone to walk you through the process and to give you weekly encouragement, someone to look over your work, someone to give you advice on what you're doing, then I would be very, very happy to coach you in that process. If you're designating someone in your company, if you're a business owner, and you want someone else to write it for you, you could sign them up for the coaching through your company. Now, here's what people that get the coaching receive. There's a 6-week book writing master class, a $2,997 value. These values over the right are what people have actually paid for these kinds of items. A 3-week How to Get Published class. You'll have 9 weeks of question and answer sessions Those are group calls, group webinars, so to speak, where people ask questions and I answer the questions. And so that's nearly an $1,800 value in itself. So, a 6-week book writing class, how to get published class, Q&A sessions. You'll have recordings of an earlier live event, $497 value. Many people pay that for that type of event. Then you get private, personal coaching project area. And that's where I work with you personally on your projects. You upload your book and I look at them and I can give you feedback. I can give you files. I can give you resources. So if all that we did through this coaching program uh, caused you to be able to write your book, and then your book caused you to get 100 new customers or clients. If you're a professional speaker, you may get 100 uh, uh, speaking events at $100. Well, that would be $10,000. You would have made your investment back. What would the end result be worth to you? What is it worth to you to get your message out to the world? What is it worth to you to have a book that would serve as your best business card and would open up doors to you in the self-marketing area for you to be interviewed on radio and TV? What would that be worth to you? What would it be worth to you if you were to self-publish your book and you did very well in the sales of it, and then a traditional publisher came along and picked up your book and it went to the world? Well, again, look at all the things that you would get in private coaching. And though my main offer to you today is something other than this, I do want you to be aware of that. And so you just go to drrandycarney.com. Don't put a period after the DR, drrandycarney.com. And look around on that website. You go to the products page and you will find coaching options. And one of those is Jumpstart Coaching. Now, how much is this going to cost you? Well, certainly not going to cost you $11,000. Not even $10,000. Not $5,000. Not $2,000. Somewhere in the neighborhood of $1,500. And there also is a 3-pay option to where you could pay just $347 or $397 for 3 or 4 months, 3 months, $397 for 3 months, and that would get you set up for the private coaching. And I'll work you through this process, and by the time we're finished, you will have your book written and you will have your book published if you are able to get your book written quickly enough and you are able to settle for the kind of book that would be an excellent book. It might not be perfect to your specifications. Okay, well, I have something else here. I'm going to raise the platter. You see, in the personal coaching, over a 3-month period of time, you have 9 coaching sessions that are given to you. That is an $1,800 value. And so that means that a personal coaching session, one of those would be equivalent to $200. And for you being on this webinar today, I want to give you the option of a $200 gift, and that is you can have a personal coaching session with me. Now, you can have two choices. You can keep going as you've been going. How's that been working? Or you can take a leap of faith and you can take the courage to go on and do whatever needs to be done to get your book done. But I would encourage you to consider the coaching option, which again today I'm going to give you the gift of a free coaching session. But if you sign up for the coaching option, I'll give you a guarantee. Now it's a limited guarantee because I can guarantee you this: if you don't do the assignments, you will not succeed. But if by the time that you ask for a refund that you have done all the assignments up to that point, we will give you your money back, no questions asked, and you can keep what you've already had given to you up to that point in the coaching program. So I would encourage you to do that. The real question is this: do you really want to have a book? If you do, then uh, follow up on one of these options. Here, get a free book planning personal session with me. Go to drrandycarney.com, scroll down the page, and find the icon to click for the free session. Just a minute, I'll show you what that page looks like. So you go to drrandycarney.com, and when you do, then you will see a web page that comes up with a lot of information on it, and it has some options on it too. So I'm waiting for that page to come up. I want to show you what that will look like. Remember, this is a $200 value that I do as personal coaching, and I will give you a personal coaching session here that can help you to get started. Maybe that's all you would need just to jumpstart your book going. So do go check this out. Another way to get to it is to go to randycarneyspeaker.com, and they both take you to the same place. Okay, here is the page, and you scroll down the page, and actually if you look over to the right, there's another free gift for you above there. Just put in your name and email, and you can get that free gift about time management for speakers. And you don't have to be a speaker. It will work for anybody who wants to write. But down below it, where the red arrows are pointing, you see the little icon with the calendar and the clock, and beside it it says click here. So just click on that, and that will take you to a page that shows you available times for us having a coaching call. And so go to drrandycarney.com. If you decide you do want personal coaching, these are all the things you would get. But in the free coaching session, we will come up with some things that can help you to get started. And I hope that what we've talked about so far has been of great value to you. It's been inspirational to you. I can tell you that if you work it, it does work. So you go to the free coaching session. It's called Let's Talk About Your Book, or Conversation About Your Book. You'll get an initial plan for how long your book should be. You'll get a start on trigger words for your chapters. You'll get a writing plan in place, and you will be able to do that.
Some have said you talked about there being other kinds of. I see I am froze up on the screen here, evidently. But anyway, that is really me. I talked about turning some of your trigger words into questions. And actually, that is a very good way of being able to come up with a block of things that will trigger your thoughts. In fact, we respond very well to questions, do we not? So, I told you about having the list of trigger words where you did pre writing, but actually, if you turn those into questions, that would make it even easier for you. And if you have come up with less than 10 trigger words or 12 or whatever your goal for the chapter is, then you can use the question words who, what, when, where, why, how, what then, and you can come up with another list of things that would trigger your thoughts for your writing. I found this to be very helpful. Then we also talk about some optional ways of being able to do this and how to marry the two ideas together. But I don't have time to do that now, but I would be happy to talk with you during a private conversation about that. So I hope you will take advantage of that, and thank you for being with me tonight. Uh, let's see, are there any other questions here? Do I have to have a computer to do a rough draft? No, you don't have to have a computer to do a rough draft. In fact, some people prefer to do the rough drafts in pen and ink. Uh, it may be a little harder to figure out what that is going to turn into lengthwise in typewritten form, but no, you don't have to do that. And then there are questions about, do you have any experience with writing software such as Scrivener? Well, I did not use Scrivener on those first three books that I've written, but the next book that I'm writing, I'm going to attempt to use it. So later I could tell you more about it. Now I see that it has a lot of good features, and again, I don't have any stock in this, uh, but I'm going to try it out, and I can tell you more about it later. It looks pretty good, what I've seen so far. Okay, any other questions? Just type them in. All right, if not, thank you for joining me tonight, and I hope that you have a great rest of the week. Some of the rest of you that joined us for the replay, you could also, I think you would be able to type in questions on the replay. If not, then you could, so you got emails from me about this webinar, and I think you should be able to reply to those email addresses. Now, if not, then you could email me at rcarney6, RCARNEY, the number 6, at gmail.com, and ask me your questions. You might want to put in the subject line webinar question, because I receive so many emails, I don't want to miss it. But anyway, thank you for joining me tonight, and I hope that you have a good rest of the week. And again, the website to go to is drrandycarney.com, and the only period that's in that address is right before com. Don't put a period after doctor. Just run it all together, drrandycarney.com. Scroll down the page, get your free report, and scroll on over there, scroll on down, and click on the availability section there to take you to my availability. And please do schedule a time for us to talk about your book. I would really enjoy talking with you about it, and maybe that's all that we will do. Or maybe you will decide that you want to have some further involvement. I'd be glad to help you with that too. But anyway, I hope this has been helpful to you tonight, going through those 7 tricks for getting your book written. And some of those were real nuggets to me and helped me get my books written. One of the best ones is where the fellow just told me, just give me something. Okay, so I'll talk to you when we can, and I hope you have a good night.